Not every relationship ends with a conversation that we hope for. Sometimes the person who caused the harm never returns to acknowledge it. The apology remains unspoken. The explanation remains missing. The silence becomes the final response. For a long time, this can feel deeply unfair. Human beings naturally seek recognition when they are hurt. They want the truth of our experience to be acknowledged. We want the person who caused the pain to understand what happened and take responsibility for it. We want the closure. But emotional maturity cannot be forced. Accountability cannot be extracted from someone who refuses to face it. Some people are just avoidant, and they don't want to face what they did wrong. They don't want to be the villain in the story, so they walk away. If they walk away, they feel like it's done with, it's disappeared. They don't have to deal with it. And that silence, while painful, often reveals more truth than explanation ever could. It reveals how someone responds when their behaviour is examined. It reveals how they angle responsibility. And it reveals the limits of what they were emotionally capable of offering within the relationship. Understanding these limits changes the meaning of the silence. What once felt like a mystery becomes a pattern. What once felt like rejection becomes evidence of avoidance. And what once felt like unfinished business becomes a story that can finally reach its conclusion. Not because the other person returned to explain it, but because the truth of their behaviour became visible through time. Peace does not always arrive through the words we hope to hear. Sometimes it arrives through clarity. And once the clarity replaces confusion, the silence that once held so much power begins to fade into something much smaller. Just another part of a story that has already revealed everything it needed to reveal. Recognising this difference allows the injured person to reinterpret the missing apology. Instead of seeing it as something that was deliberately withheld, it becomes something the other person may not have been emotionally capable of offering. This recognition can be painful at first, because it means accepting that the conversation once hoped for may never occur. But it also creates a new form of emotional freedom. The apology is no longer necessary in order to understand the experience. The behaviour already revealed what needed to be known. The conflict shown how accountability was handled. The silence shown how emotional pressure was avoided. And the patterns that followed confirmed the psychological forces behind those decisions. Once these elements become clear, the apology begins to lose its central role in the healing process. Instead of waiting for the other person to acknowledge the experience, the injured person begins acknowledging it themselves. They recognise the truth of what happened. They recognise the emotional impact it had, and they recognise the limits that shape the other person's response. This shift represents the beginning of emotional independence. You do not need that other person to come forward to be free, to gain your closure, because you can do it by yourself. Don't take their disappearance as a personal attack. They just can't deal with handling the situation like a mature human being would. This is taken from the book Silence After the Ego: Why Men Disappear Instead of Taking Accountability. by Cheryl Roberts. It's available on Amazon.